we're Project Team 10 of the Sustainable Farmers Association, and today we'll be presenting our plan to develop a farm that is both ecologically conscious and financially viable.
So I'm Philip.
I'm Lee.
I'm Summer.
I'm Nina.
And I'm Neil.
So we're going to start off by presenting the situation that we find ourselves in. So we recently purchased a 37-hectare farm near Woodstock, Ontario. This is the farm as we envision it in the future. So as we found it, when we purchased it, there is a creek, mud creek, running through the farm. It's surrounded on both sides by a woodlot of mixed deciduous trees. In this area here, we have a black walnut stand, and here are fields that were used for agriculture. To the east of our farm is a 200-hectare protected forest, and on all three sides are local farmers. These farmers have recently reported drier soils, higher winds, and unpredictable weather overall, leading to decreased productivity. As a result, we would like to transform the farm into a productive model farm and community hub.
So throughout our process, we hope to consult with all the stakeholders in the situation, including us, other local farmers, the broader community, the local government, Indigenous groups, biodiversity in the area, and local conservation and the local conservation area. We will be discussing our methods throughout the process with these groups and hope to have their input as we continue.
So in relation to forestry in our farm, for the black walnut stand, we would like to use single selection harvesting and to sell hardwood to local carpentry stores to support local artisans and artists. And we would like to also work with the neighboring farms and the Conservation Authority to remove ash trees and elm trees that have been affected by disease and invasive species, and to replant these trees later after the beetles have moved on. Finally, we'd also like to implement hedgerows of sugar maples mixed with wild grapes and blackberry bushes in order to create a productive hedgerow that will prevent high winds from eroding the soil.
We'd also like to include a pond here, which will it will first of all act as a fishing pond for people entering our property in the future, as well as providing habitat for fish and predators which will eat the fish, such as bullfrogs and great blue herons. We also have two areas which we will allow to, one area which we will allow to succeed, and one which we will transform into a pollinator garden, which will support local pollinators as well as animals which will eat those pollinators. In our succeeding area, we have three different types of succession in our zone, which allows for a greater habitat, number of habitats to increase the biodiversity in our area, which will increase our resiliency to climate change in the coming years.
Right. In terms of aquatics, we plan to create a rich riparian zone around Mud Creek with plants such as blue flag iris, cattails, common sedges, and common butterwort. So this riparian zone will create a shaded environment which will increase levels of dissolved oxygen in the creek, which will be ideal conditions for fish and aquatic macroinvertebrates, as well as reducing algal growth. In addition, the riparian zone will be an excellent environment for dragonflies, which will act as a natural pesticide for our emerald ash borer problem. In addition, the riparian zone in general will act as a buffer against agricultural runoff into the stream and reduce erosion in the area. Finally, we plan to establish mound and pit ponds in the forest, emulating the conditions created by fallen trees in nature to create habitats for amphibians. And in general, this plan will create a more resilient and biodiverse property.
When looking at the soil, we determined that it's alluvial soil, meaning that it's fertile and rich in organic matter. The organic matter is from 4 to 4.4%. We determined that it's silty loam to low. We determined that the pH is approximately around 7. And from this, we decided to use plant selection based on this data. We will also use a no-till method to preserve the soil, and we're looking at incorporating and recycling animal waste, and we're looking at partnering with a local coffee shop or food shop to reuse their grounds.
When it comes to what we've actually planted, for our most southern fields, we've decided on a pick-your-own approach, open to the public, where we will be using crop rotation between strawberries, pumpkins, and snow peas, which are a nitrifying plant. On our main fields, we're going to use crop rotation between a cover crop of red clover, barley, which is nitrifying potatoes and onions. In our southwestern fields, we're going to use the Three Sisters method with heirloom corn, gourds, and a variety of pole beans. We're also going to have livestock of chickens and goats, which, as Nina mentioned, the manure will be used as a fertilizer on the rest of our fields.
So we've also implemented a small research plot here, which we will be researching GIS slash GPS systems, which we can use to determine how best to plant in our system, as well as furthering general knowledge on how those systems work. Within our main building, we also plan to research aquaponics and aeroponics systems, and hopefully encourage our local community to be able to use those systems in order to increase their yields in a more sustainable way.
So as you might have heard us mention, we're from the Sustainable Farmers Association, and what this is actually a not-for-profit that we've created to run this model farm and the community center that we're going to be renovating our barn into. And the purpose of this association is to build a community network that assists and encourages farmers to implement best management practices, as well as providing a sustainable diet option for the community. And some of the actions that we'll be involved in are education for farmers on how to implement best management practices through workshops that we conduct at our community center, written guides that we create, and a strong blog and social media presence that documents our experience. We'll also provide a small grant program for farmers to assist in the initial investment that best management practices requires. And using the agroecology principle of responsible governance, we'll bridge the gap between the government and farmers through pushing for policy changes that support and encourage best management practice implementation.
We'll also be looking at including the local community by including at-risk youth and incorporating at-risk youth programs. We're looking at hosting potentially school trips at the farm itself. We're looking at incorporating co-op students, whether they be high school or geomatic university students. We're also looking at incorporating
Indigenous education. So Indigenous communities could use the center and run education programs on agriculture there.
All right, so in regards to our financials, we plan to develop this farm with a budget of around $100,000, which will go towards developing a sugar shack for maple syrup production, renovating our barn to include a community center and a location for goats and chickens, as well as planting our hedgerows and pollinator garden. 40% will go towards labor and preparing the farm and our co-op research, as well as 50% for equipment and 10% for our outreach programs. These investments will create a productive farm that's able to generate revenue and pay for itself over the course of our 10-year plan. For instance, our black walnut tree stand will be harvested over a long period of time, taking 1 to 2 trees per year and selling to local wood shops in Ontario for development. In addition, we can sell our produce at local farmers market in nearby Woodstock, as well as to local restaurants. We will also be growing organic malt barley, which we can sell to bakeries and breweries. And additionally, our community center can be used as a space to sell bee baskets and equipment, as well as renting the location for use. Finally, our fishing pond can be used as a recreational fishery, where we can embed the community in for recreation.
So for our 10-year plan, we have it outlined here. So in the first year, we would like to take part in consultation with local groups and incorporate the organization and begin plans of that nature. In the second year, ideally, with community approval and the involvement of locals, we would like to begin the tree removal process. The following year, we would like to plant and harvest our first crops, making the first profit from our farm. And the year after, we would like to begin construction of the projects. So modifying the barn and building the sugar shack. And then in year 5, we would like to begin replanting trees. And then the following year, we would like to open the farm and sugar shack operationally.
So from year 7, we'll be looking at how to best implement the research, and we'll be reviewing it. Years 8 and 9 are the evaluation and observation of all our best management practices. And then from year 10 and onward, we'll be looking at we'll be reviewing all those best management practices, and we'll be introducing them to other farms, and maybe introducing new best management practices to our own system.
And from there, we'd like to have another evaluation every 5 years to ensure that we're up to date. To conclude, as sustainability advocate Johan Zeich said, sustainability is no longer about doing less harm, it's about doing more good. We believe we've created a complete agricultural plan that does this. Thank you.